say two things. I mean, first of all, without getting into the specific Teshuvot, one of the things that was so powerful about him as a posek was his creativity and his, preparedness to break new ground, come up with new ways of framing halachot, bring halachot that had been never applied to certain new phenomenon and find ways to bridge them and to apply them. Dealing with issues, for example, of patient autonomy, which had never really was addressed within halacha before. Halacha was always, you got to do the thing that's going to save the person's life. Why should the patient have greater say in their treatment than what halachically you're mandated to do, that the doctor expert opinion is to protect their life? But when medical ethics was developing, in the States and around the world and put patient autonomy at the center, Rav Moshe found a way within halacha to bring patient autonomy, as a central halachic concern. So there was just enormous creativity, and also the way that he really brings such a analytical approach to thinking about halachic topics. I'll give you an example of just a small little example, which will just get you a sense of just how sort of creative he could be. He was asked a question about if somebody, if you buy, let's say, a jar of pickles, and you're planning on keeping the jar, you have to be tovel it, right? You have to immerse it, which is what you have to do when you buy when you're buying different vessels that you're using for food. And there are some poskim that say, yes, you have to be tovel it, and not only that, since you're planning on keeping the jar, you got to empty it from the pickles and tovel it right away. You can't even just use it as you're taking the pickles out of it, And Rav Moshe Feinstein says, no, you don't have to. Why? Because he said that if a jar is made to be disposable, so it doesn't really have the status of a kli, of like a vessel according to halacha, so it's not obligated to be tovel. And he says, then if you decide that you're going to keep it and use it regularly, your decision is what makes it into a kli. So the halacha is that a vessel made by a Jew doesn't require tevila, only a vessel made by a non-Jew. So he said the non-Jews made the jar, but when they made it, it wasn't yet a vessel. When you decided to keep it and reuse it, you made it a vessel, so it's made by a Jew, so you don't have to put it in the mikvah, right? So that was just a brilliant example, like how, just creative he could be, but obviously in areas that were much more important than just this question about a pickle jar. I will say also that he was very responsive to the human condition. It's remarkable just how he's able to find a way, to live within halacha, belief that halacha will not make demands enough that we can't live by, and that halacha has to be responsive to our realities. So he's often finding, real paths for leniency, but not always. To just use a flip example of this thing about a disposable vessel, Rav Moshe says, many people, this is relevant to your drinking, to the theme of this podcast. A lot of people will make kiddush on like little shot glasses, right? So there's a double question. One is that big enough? It's only like 1 ounce. It's supposed to be 3 ounces. But the other is that those are disposable. So sometimes people will put 2 cups together. But, Rav Moshe said, like in the example before about putting it in a mikvah, he says something that's disposable doesn't count as a vessel, doesn't count as a kli, so it doesn't count as a halachic kos, as a cup that you can make kiddush on. So he would not allow making kiddush on a disposable vessel. It doesn't matter if you're using 2 or 3 of them; they're still all disposable. Anyway, that's just a little bit of a peek into it.